Mai Govanen Melanin, and welcome back to Medieval Art. I'm Dr. Brian Keene, and I teach art history at Riverside City College and was most recently a curator at the Getty Museum. I'm honored to be joined by an epic fellowship of art historians to discuss Amazon Prime's The Rings of Power and to share insights about the Middle Ages, fantasy and folklore, and the ways that we as museum curators, as art historians, and others who love visual culture embrace pop culture in the work that we do. We'll share weekly videos and invite you to like, comment, and share. Thank you all for being here. I'd love it if you could give us a brief introduction of who you are and one thing that you're looking forward to seeing in The Rings of Power from any of J.R.R. Tolkien's source material. Larisa, can I throw it to you?
Sure, Brian. Hi, I'm Larisa Grollemond. I'm a curator at the Getty Museum, and I work on medieval manuscripts, mainly from 15th century France, but not limited to there. And one thing I'm really looking forward to in The Rings of Power, which we've already seen a little bit of, is the kind of intersection of magic and visual culture and how magic works in this world and how it's visualized. So that's something that I'm really interested in seeing developed as the series progresses.
Awesome, Larisa, thank you. And Diva, let's hear what you're looking forward to in The Rings of Power and what it is that you do as an art historian.
Hi, I'm Dr. Diva Zumaya. I'm a curator of European paintings and sculpture at LACMA, where I'm responsible for European art from antiquity to about 1900. I'm also a lifelong Tolkien nerd. I have a Tolkien tattoo, so that gives me some credentials. And I'm really looking forward to basically seeing all these different places. That's what I keep thinking about. What does Numenor look like? You know, what do all these different places look like that have only existed in my imagination for as long as I can remember and that have such really implications for characters like Aragorn and people who, you know, have a big stake in what Numenor is all about.
Thank you, Diva. Already we're hearing some important names of places and individuals that we'll be able to dive down into. For those who are familiar with the lore, these names will sound familiar. And if you're not, we hope that you'll continue to stick around and engage with the material. Sarah, what are you looking forward to in the series, and what does your work include as an art historian?
Hi, I'm Sarah Schaefer. I'm an assistant professor in art history at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I'm also the co-curator of J.R.R. Tolkien, The Art of the Manuscript. That's an exhibition that's up in Milwaukee right now. I am really looking forward to, I think, kind of the making of different materials and the material cultures of the different groups and different communities that we're going to see in the show. So I'm curious if they're going to show us, for instance, how is Mithril transformed into Ithilden? How are these things that we see manifest in things like the Doors of Durin? How is that actually produced? And I think the show might actually be kind of uniquely positioned to show us those kinds of things that are hinted at and discussed in the books and in other adaptations, but we might get a little bit more of in the show itself.
And I love that you're already hinting at tying in some of the themes that Larisa mentioned with magic and the luster of creativity that we see in the realms of the dwarves, with the importance of starlight for many of the peoples of Middle Earth, but this material mithril that I think will continue to eke its way out throughout the series. And then John, what are you interested in The Rings of Power? And tell us something about your work.
Hello, everyone. I'm John McQuillen. I'm curator of printed books at the Morgan Library and Museum in New York. And in 2019, I organized for the Morgan the exhibition J.R.R. Tolkien, Maker of Middle Earth, which came to us from the Bodleian Library at Oxford. And that was really my first foray into Tolkien as this author and creator of Middle Earth. And what I'm really looking forward to seeing them introduce into The Rings of Power are some of the actual visual material that Tolkien produced himself and drew, the doodles, the little sketches, like the way he was picturing these, and to start to see some visual references from his own material come into the materiality of the show. So you get to see really the world that he created.
And we're looking for those hints of Tolkien, the author, of Tolkien, the creator, as we venture back into Middle Earth or ventured to Middle Earth for the first time. And Sophia, what is the thing that you're looking most forward to in the show? And then tell us something about your work as an art historian.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sophia McCabe, and I'm a art historian and curator at the Art Design and Architecture Museum at UC Santa Barbara. I'm really delighted to be here to join this fellowship. I am really looking forward to seeing how these different worlds are being created and have been created, like basically from Alan Lee sketches and drawings and John Howe paintings and such, and brought onto the Rings of Power. So very much looking forward to that, as well as, like Diva said, how Numenor is going to be crafted, understanding that it is full of kind of like waterways and such. So I'm looking to see like what sort of perhaps different medieval cities can go into that.
It's wonderful that we've already heard the word Numenor a few times. That's certainly a place that I'm excited to see, as we've not yet glimpsed Numenor in the previous iterations maybe of this world. Some of us have already spent a lot of time imagining Numenor from childhood. I'm excited to see the events of the Akallabeth play themselves out on screen. That's something that, spoiler free, you'll have to look forward to coming on. And so far we have seen those glimpses, the visual culture pulling from a range of traditions, historic traditions, contemporary traditions. We've glimpsed Valinor and Lindon and Eregion, the Southlands, the Forodwaith, Khazad-dûm, the sunken city of Beleriand, I think we may have possibly seen. It's been exhilarating so far. We've been given a visual treat, also a symphonic treat. The soundtrack for the show is really sensational. So if I can turn it back to each of you, perhaps one more time in the final moments that we have, is there a character that you're most interested in seeing their role play out through the series? And Larisa, if I can bounce it back to you for a character that you're most excited to see in the show.
I guess it's cliche so far because she's really been the starring role, but I'm really interested to see what happens with Galadriel because she's gotten so much pushback, I think, from fans online already. But I'm really interested to see how her character deepens and develops over the course of the series to, I think, the version of the character that maybe more people are familiar with from the Peter Jackson films with Cate Blanchett. And so how does this actress bring a certain flavor to Galadriel that we haven't seen before?
Well, I'm here for female warriors 100%. Give us more of that. And Diva, is there a character that's standing out to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, I will also echo the Galadriel fandom. I think it's really interesting to think about her in a totally different way than I did when I was watching the original series and reading the books. I also really want to give a shout out to Disa. I already like her a lot. And I think dwarves have been gendered so obviously only as male so far in the Tolkiendoms we've seen. So I'm excited to see what dwarf ladies have, going on.
I would echo that as well, that seeing dwarf women on screen and seeing women of color in these roles and men of color as elves and other important characters, that's something that we shouldn't take for granted in the decisions that were made. We can talk at length about the decisions Tolkien made in terms of race and gender and sexuality and the way that those themes are relevant today in new ways, and that we can think about 50 years after some of these stories were written or 100 years after some of them were written. I'm here for Disa as well. Sarah, who are you excited to see?
I think I'm most excited to see the development of Celebrimbor, in part because he is the kind of key maker in this story, and Charles Edwards is just such a charming actor. It's really fun to see him step into this role. As a side note, I have to say, in addition to Diva, I have a Tolkien tattoo, and I know Larisa has a Tolkien tattoo.
And it seems I need a Tolkien tattoo. I've written Elvish phrases for my friends who have Tolkien tattoos, but that's the next up on my to-do list. John, is there a character that you're excited about?
I also was thinking of Galadriel, particularly in those sort of like this sort of Joan of Arc moment that she was having. But I'll punt for Elrond just to say, both from what we're maybe a little bit more familiar with from the Peter Jackson interpretations and the books, like he has a great story, but he doesn't do a whole lot. And so to see him doing something where he creates this story, like this life that he's led, that puts him in the position that we know from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, I'm kind of interested to see how he becomes the man, the elf man that we know from those stories.
And Sophia, in our last few minutes together, can you share with us a character you're excited about?
I would say Nori Brandyfoot. I think she's amazing. She's a fantastic, the actress is fantastic. And I think she brings a little kind of this essence of like, there's more to, this world than my world. And I think that's what the whole, kind of Lord of the Rings helps us understand.
Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to sharing more insights with you in the weeks to come.